I want to thank you for downloading or streaming this message from Victory. We believe that the starting point for real life change is centered around God's Word lived out with God's people. So no matter who you are or where you are or what you're struggling with, our goal is to inspire and equip you with a new perspective that will give you a better way to do life. And we pray that as you live out God's Word, you will truly experience something more, something better. And if you haven't experienced a live Victory service yet, we invite you to visit victorycc.life for more information on when and where you can join us. No matter where you are in the world, you can tune in with us through Victory Everywhere. That's what we're calling our online campus, Victory Everywhere. Or if you're local, we'd love to have you join us here in person. Here at Victory, we're contributors, not just consumers, and we consider it a privilege to give back what God has so freely given us. We celebrate generosity and the work that God does with our sacrificial giving and in our community and around the world. And if the message that you are about to hear helps you, inspires you, and challenges you in any way, we invite you to partner with us financially in our vision of connecting people back to God. Join us by going to victorycc.life/give. Thank you again for watching. We hope you enjoy this message. I want to welcome everybody to Above and Beyond. Everybody excited about this time of year? So if you're in person or online, I'm excited to share what God is doing through our church. And I'm excited because we have an opportunity in front of us to impact our community and our world. In fact, if you call yourself a Jesus follower and this is your church, we have an opportunity to show the world how our faith actually impacts our life. And at Victory, we're contributors, not just consumers. And it's a privilege to give back to God what He's so generously and freely given to us. Now, from 2018 to 2020, through Above and Beyond, we've given away over $1 million collectively. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. We've fed the hungry, we've rescued people out of human trafficking, we supported our police and first responders, we've fed our seniors in the community, paid off the lunch debts of Franklin and Whiteland and Edinburgh school systems. We funded special projects for Webb Elementary, Edinburgh High School, Kick It, Johnson County Senior Services, the Interchurch Food Pantry, Together for Johnson County, the Boys and Girls Club, CareNet. We paid off the mortgage of the building here. Get this, that's exciting. We wiped out all of the secondary medical debt in all of Franklin. Like we bought back the debt for pennies on the dollar. We wiped out $4.7 million of medical debt right here in our community. Yeah. We set up the next gen to win. We did this through scholarships. We sent them to camps and retreats. We did scholarships for leadership of Johnson County. We partnered with Danny Marquez to help bring racial reconciliation to the city. I'm telling you, we have done a lot since 2018. And so far in 2021, we've given away $72,000 to a local and global partners, and not including many of the van loads of items that we've donated to the Afghan refugees. We've spent, right now, you saw the video, we have a team in the Dominican Republic right now. So I just want you to know that your church is on mission. And we've given away $861,259 from 2018 to the present to local causes and community causes and local missions. And then we've given $173,205 to global mission partners. And I think we're just getting started. Yeah. So if you're new to Victory, and if this is a church that is on a mission, and we're committed to the teachings of Jesus and the example of Jesus as He gave, as He served, as He loved. Now, if you're new here, and you need to know that the people of this church, they've been generous. In fact, even if you attend here, most of you don't know about this, but back in July, August, we had an air conditioner go out, a roof leak, a rooftop unit go down here at the church, and those things aren't cheap. But we had a generous family offer to step up and set up a matching fund. And behind the scenes, without us ever talking about it up front here, a small group of people at Victory came up with $62,000, right, to help fund and pay for the capital improvements. I'm thankful for them. Yeah. I'm telling you, I'm blown away by your generosity and the generosity of the Jesus followers at Victory, and I'm humbled by their sacrifice. And so here, if you call this church your church, it's our turn. It's our turn. Now, if you're not a Jesus follower and this isn't your church, that's okay. Like, we're not going to ask anything from you. I just want you to sit back and prepare to be amazed by how these Jesus followers follow Jesus. But you might be wondering, okay, Josh, that's what is really Above and Beyond? Well, Above and Beyond is our end of year giving initiative where we give above what we would normally give to go beyond where we would normally go. And so we're doing that through the sacrificial generosity. And over the last few months, our team has been putting together some opportunities for this year. If you want to know some more about that, you can click this QR code on our screen right there. If you don't have the app, you can just scan that in, and you click that QR code or go to that on the screen. And when you open it up, you download our app, and when you click on the Above and Beyond banner, and this year, our focus is to give and serve and love. That's our focus. So if you call the Victory your church, I want you to have a plan to give and serve and love our community, a plan to participate financially. And even if you've never given to church before, that's fine. You have your reasons. I just want to challenge you to make a plan this year to participate. December 18th and 19th, be prepared to give a one-time sacrificial gift because we're giving it all away, right? So under the giving section on the app, you can just select the Above and Beyond part of that. And you might already be prepared to give right now, but you can click Give and click this, and you can do that if you want. But for those of us who need a little more time, those of us who want to use this opportunity as a teaching opportunity for our kids about sacrifice, make a discussion at home about what we might give up as a family or sacrifice as a family so that in 6 weeks we can participate in this and come prepared to give a one-time sacrificial to you gift. And what that means is for others, this, it might not be a sacrifice, but to you it is. Or to others, what you can give would be a huge sacrifice. But you get this, you think about it and you wouldn't even miss it. So be prepared to give a one-time sacrificial to you gift on that day. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Josh, what are we giving to this year? Well, over the course of the next couple weeks, I'm going to share more detail about where the money is going to go. And some of you need to realize that we want to feed hungry people, and some of that money is going to go to do that. In fact, on Thanksgiving, we're going to be feeding some people in our community. Not only that, but this year, we have the opportunity to do things a little bit different because in addition to just giving money away, in a couple weeks, we have the opportunity to bless our community and to love our neighbors and an opportunity to actually serve by delivering some of these meals and eating with some people in our community. We'll have those opportunities here in Indy, in Franklin, and in Edinburgh. And behind the scenes, we're going to be gathering the supplies so that you and your family can bless people in Indy, and Franklin, and Edinburgh. You can sign up through our app right here. There's serving opportunities November 18th and November 20th. And you can serve a meal on November 18th down in Indy, or you can on November 18th, we're going to be partnering with Danny. We're going to be Victory in the city, preparing a meal for people down there. And then on November 20th, you and your family can actually have the opportunity to spend a few hours on a Saturday morning to distribute a Thanksgiving meal right in our communities. And we're going to put together these baskets, and we have all of the Thanksgiving stuff in there, and then the opportunity to serve the communities of Franklin and Edinburgh by distributing a Thanksgiving meal. And together, we will have a unique opportunity to give and serve and love. Now, today is going to be, again, this overarching picture where we believe that God has opened doors for us both globally and locally. And just so you know, we don't want to plan a whole bunch of things and then ask God to bless it. Our prayer as a team has been for God to help us be a part of what you're already doing. Open the doors that you want us to walk through, God, and slam the doors shut of the places that we have no business dealing with. And just so you know, our team has experienced a few slam doors, and we're okay with that. But after vetting the opportunities and praying about it for a few months, our team is excited to present to you some of our above and beyond areas for 2021. We're going to be in India and Papua New Guinea and Indy and Franklin and Edinburgh. All right, that's where we're going, and we'll be breaking down those in detail over the course of this next month, but I wanted to give you an overview of some of those opportunities that God's presented with us, and we're starting local in Indy. We're going to be partnering with Danny. Danny is an amazing guy, and we're going to partner with him in an exciting new way. You're going to hear more from Danny on November 21st, so you won't want to miss that. And if you don't know Danny, he and his family are amazing, but they're planted in the dangerous middle of a lot of racial tension and active violence here in Indianapolis. In fact, the local news said this summer that per capita, Indy is more violent than Chicago. But Danny and his family have been trying to bring racial reconciliation to the streets. And I don't know if you sense this, but I think Zach mentioned it a few minutes ago. Our nation is divided, right? In so many ways, our nation is divided, and navigating the topic of race is just so complex. And we believe that only Jesus can change the hearts and minds of men and women. And so Danny and his family are there on the front lines of that fight. And I've had people ask me this great question. They go, Josh, what is racial reconciliation? Because you can't look it up in the dictionary and find an agreed upon term. And so I, with the help of Danny and some others, we came up with this definition of racial reconciliation. It's what happens when the life-changing message of Jesus aligns the hearts and the lives of his people regardless of race. So racial reconciliation, that's just what happens when the life-changing message of Jesus aligns the hearts and the lives of his people regardless of race. That there's this kindred spirit, that there's this brotherhood because of Jesus. And at Victory, we believe that a divided nation needs a united church. That Jesus is the king of all people and Jesus is the king for all people. So we want to align our hearts and our lives with good King Jesus. I'm telling you, you won't want to miss November 21st. So that's coming up as we give and serve and love. Now locally, we're going to focus on some more specific opportunities, but we're going to be focusing on Indy, Franklin, and Edinburgh. And on the Franklin side, right here in Franklin, we're going to provide some Thanksgiving meals for the hungry in the community. And this is the opportunity for you to serve. We're also going to be raising scholarships for camp through Above and Beyond, where we want to send 150 kids to camp to set up the next gen to win through the activities at Victory. And we want, the life-changing experiences happen there. And sometimes the costs are prohibitive to some students and families, and we don't want money to be the reason some of our kids aren't able to attend. So we're going to try to give $100 scholarships to every kid that attends, and that's Franklin. And then I'm going to share more about the potential impact locally in Edinburgh and Victory Everywhere in the coming weeks, so you're not going to want to miss that. But for today, that's local. Global, we're going to be able to be a part of some pretty amazing things. Like back in 2017, in our first year of Above and Beyond, our church sent Ryan Hardy and his family right there. He's excited, right? To Papua New Guinea. And he's a Bible translator, and they've already translated Jonah and Luke and James and Philemon. And I want you to think about this for just a second. 100% of the tribe that he's dealing with has never read God's word in their language. And it's just amazing. How would you develop your faith? Not being able to read God's word in your own language. It'd be like you trying to study the Bible in Portuguese, right? That would maybe slow down your Bible Instagram post. But for Ryan, he has some of the Bible, prepared for them, and he wants to share that with the people. And we want to help provide a way for clean water for that village to help them show that there's good news behind God's good news word, right? There are about 2,000 people right now without clean water, and we want them to know that the life-changing message of Jesus is good news. And so we've already sacrificed for them spiritually. To provide for them spiritually, we want to sacrifice to provide for them physically. And we have 6 weeks to sacrifice and 6 weeks to save to be a part of that. And the last global initiative I want to tell you about, I know it's a lot of information, but this one broke my heart. I heard the story. I was at lunch in August, and I was told that in India right now that people were selling their kids into slavery. And COVID made this worse. In fact, the number of poor people in India with incomes of $2 or less a day, so think about that, $730 a year, estimated to have increased by 75 million because of the COVID recession. And so I also discovered in those same numbers that a third of the children in India right now, a third of the children die, and a third of the children are malnourished. And get this, India already had 60 million people living below the poverty line. That's $2 a day. And with COVID, they added another 75 million. That's 135 million people that God loves with no savings and no ability to provide for their family. They're forced to sell their kids. And we want to free them. Now, when I first heard this, we immediately freed 20 of the kids there, and which means we freed them and provided some training for them. And we want to free more through Above and Beyond. That's our goal. For just $200 or $250, we can free more of them. But not only that, we're going to partner with Central India Christian Mission to help give them some skills so they won't have to be sold back into slavery again. We're going to give and serve and love the people in India that God so loves. Now, some of you might be prepared to do that today. I want to do that today. Great, you can give today, but in 6 weeks, we're going to be doing that at our Christmas services as well. So now the plan is to go above and beyond. And you know this, but the world right now, there's fierce persecution against Christians. In fact, according to the 2021 World Watch list, it says that every single day, 13 Christians worldwide are killed because of their faith. 12 churches or Christian buildings are attacked. 12 Christians are unjustly arrested or imprisoned, and 5 Christians are abducted because of their faith every single day that takes place. And in India, it's seeing an increased violence, and it's making it the 7th most dangerous country to live for Jesus in. But the people's hearts there are right for the life-changing message of Jesus. They're wide open in spite of the fierce persecution they're facing. In fact, every church planter, on average, baptizes 800 people. Just think about that. It's somehow amazing that is 800 souls, 800 people who now have hope because of Jesus in one of the darkest, poorest, most violent countries on the planet. And when I shared this with some of the guys on our leadership team, they immediately had tears in their eyes. They went home, and then they asked me to meet them again, and they handed me a check for $3,600 to pay for another church planter. And that's what we want to go through Above and Beyond. We want to do that again. We want to plant even more churches in India through Above and Beyond, and we're going to help support this nation and planting hope in a nation that's dying for hope. Now, you need to know that the Jesus followers in India are committed. In fact, I read the story of Sanja. This happened recently. Sanja is one of the ministers in Central India Christian Mission, and he and his wife, they planted a church in Central India. They had about close to 300 people coming to his church in attendance, and one Sunday, Sanja's wife was having some health problems. And so there wasn't a hospital in town, so he got on the motorcycle, put her on the motorcycle, took her to get some help. And in the middle of the jungle, they were stopped by 3 Hindu extremists on motorcycles. And because they followed Jesus, they started beating them with rods. Sanjay was hit on the head and was knocked unconscious. And 2 days later, he woke up in the ICU there in India, and his uncle broke the news to him that while they were attacked, his wife was murdered. And they didn't know if Sanjay would recover, and so they already had the funeral for his wife. And Sanjay was crushed, and he didn't know what to do, and for a full month, he prayed about, God, what do you want me to do? How am I going to recover from this? Where do you want me to go? And he said he felt God calling him to go back to the very same area where he was attacked, and he did. He preached the life-changing message of Jesus there, and 35 new families were added to the church. And this story reminds me of the intensity and the commitment and the love that those first followers of Jesus had. They were willing to sacrifice everything, not for something they believed, no, but for what they believed that they had seen, a resurrected Jesus. I'm telling you, India is dying without the hope that Jesus brings. And so when you and I die, all of our possessions, they stay here. The things the only things from earth that we'll see in heaven are the people who have met Jesus. So that means that when we sacrifice and when we give and when we invest and when we love, it's the greatest investment we could ever make. The more we give, the more opportunity for people to meet Jesus and worship Jesus and follow Jesus. It's just that simple. By funding the gospel message, we're opening up more opportunities for more people to meet and worship and follow Jesus as God. I'm telling you, that is exciting. And God is opening doors for us to make a generational difference locally and globally. If you call Victory your church, we want you to have a plan to be a part of that. And so we want you to be able to have a plan to participate in what God's doing. Now, the good news is I'm asking nothing from you today. I just want you to pray about what God might want you to do 6 weeks from now. And if this is your first time at Victory or you're not a Jesus follower, there's no expectation at all to be a part of any of this. But if you follow Jesus, we're called to be contributors. You see, the reason Jesus makes such a big deal about generosity and caring for the world around you isn't because he's after your wallet. That's what it feels like. But he's not after your wallet. He's after your heart. And if you're a Jesus follower, you need to know that generosity is the core message of Christianity. It's the core action that Jesus followers have taken from the very beginning. Why? It's because the scripture says this: God so loved the world that he what? He gave. And so they gave, because that's what love required of them. And during his life on earth, Jesus served and loved and cared and gave to all kinds of people. And those first followers of Jesus followed the example of Jesus. Even though they had very little, they trusted Jesus with what they had. And the world has been forever changed by their sacrifice. In fact, in history, it reveals that Jesus followers have been the most progressive, sacrificial, compassionate, innovative, loving, generous people in the world. That's our history. In fact, if you have your Bible or mobile device, please turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 8. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, here's a timeline of when it was written. 2 Corinthians was written around 55 to 56 AD. And by the time around 50 AD, the Jesus movement had spread to many of the key Roman cities. And so Paul is trying to explain the message of Jesus and the mission of Jesus to the people of Corinth. That's what was going on. And Corinth right here is a strategic city because of its location. The people of Corinth, they were known for their, get this, they were known for their love. But not the way that Jesus followers express love, because they were known for the love because of the goddess that they followed, the goddess of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. And so when they thought of the concept of love, they valued pleasure, independence, and happiness. That's what they thought of when they thought of love. The land that they lived in was wealthy and educated. They had influence in the world. It was the crossroads of ancient time, but their highest aim was for themselves, pleasure and seduction and living in the moment. But Paul writes to them, and he redefines love for those who follow Jesus. He says, love is really selfless and sacrificial. And in chapter 8, Paul gives us a picture. He says, and now, brothers and sisters, so I want you to know that if you're a Jesus follower, your family, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. Now, the Macedonian churches were 456 miles north, and that's where Paul was staying when he was writing this to the church down here in Corinth. And he's describing the kind of grace that he experienced up here from the Jesus followers in the Macedonian church. Now, if I was going to tell you to tell me a story about the grace of God, what kind of story do you think you'd be telling? Oh, how God's restored me or forgiven me or rescued me. But I want you to look at what Paul talks about. He says, and now, brothers and sisters, we want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches in the midst of a very severe trial, their overflowing joy, and their extreme poverty. In fact, the poverty of the Macedonians is confirmed by secular history. The Romans took most of their wealth because Macedonia was the homeland of Alexander the Great. And they wanted them to know who was really great. So they crushed them and made them suffer under severe poverty. And this time in Rome, if you follow Jesus, the persecution was worse. So Paul's talking to the Christians in Macedonia who were poor and persecuted because they followed Jesus. And so they had these dirt poor Jesus followers who were being executed, arrested, and kidnapped and beaten. But check out their mindset. It says, in the midst of a very severe trial, they're overflowing what? Joy. Now just think about that for a second. If your sister got kidnapped or you lost your job because you followed Jesus, would you wake up feeling the next day? Would you wake up with feeling overwhelming joy? It's like, how's that possible? Well, Paul points to God's gift of grace, and it was messing with them. It motivated them. It empowered them. It changed them. Jesus had such a firm grip on their heart that they believed that he lived for me, he died for me, he rose for me, so not even death has the last word in my story. That because of Jesus, my identity and my future and where I'm going is going to be with him. Their faith actually impacted their life. And check out what these broke, persecuted Jesus followers did. It says, in the midst a very severe trial, their overflowing joy and extreme poverty, they welled up in rich, what? Generosity. To which the receivers of this letter, the people in Corinth, said, why would you do that? Because we think about, our culture says we need to avoid pain and indulge in pleasure. That if you were poor in their culture, you were despised, not pitied. If you chose to give away your wealth, you were ridiculed in their culture. Paul says, no. See, what prompted them and what encouraged them and what inspired them in the midst of great difficulty was the grace of God. The gift of God's grace on their lives, it messed with them. It motivated them. It empowered them. It changed them. Their faith impacted their life and turned their thinking completely upside down. Now, the reason Paul was writing to them is because down here in Jerusalem, all the way over here, there's a food shortage. And so the Jesus followers in Jerusalem are hit hard, starvation, poverty, very, very difficult times. So Paul hears about it, and he sends a message to all of these churches that he's planted, and he's teaching those first followers of Jesus that Jesus followers need to care about all kinds of people we'll never meet. People we don't have things in common with, because the grace of God has impacted our lives. And in doing so, what we're reading about in 2 Corinthians is the very first time recorded in history where there was an aid given to other cultures. Because the Jesus followers in Macedonia gave and served and loved the Jesus followers down there in Jerusalem. And so Paul is in Macedonia, and he's blown away by their sacrificial generosity, and he's writing to the Jesus followers down here in Corinth, and he says, look at what he says next. He says, in the midst of severe trial, their overwhelming joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. And then he goes on to say this, for I testify, meaning I swear, that they gave as much as they were able. And then he's like, strike that. No, they gave beyond their ability, entirely on their own. They urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in the service to the Lord's people. So he's saying that we didn't pressure them. No, they heard what the need was, and the grace of God hit their lives so hard that they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing the service of the Lord's people. In other words, Paul's saying, we weren't going to ask them. We didn't even think that they had anything to contribute. We didn't think they had the finances to participate, right? They were living in extreme poverty. And just so you know, first century poverty is different than American poverty. But they were pleaded with us to be generous. When they saw the need, they pled to give. And I just imagine you got fired from your job because you followed Jesus. And then I shared with you a need of somebody else or a problem in the world today, and you began begging me to participate, to give towards that effort, because it meant that you were partnering with God. I mean, that's what we're talking about. And while he was partnering with what God is doing in this world, because the grace of God had rocked your heart and changed your heart, so you were so moved by the grace of God that you just automatically wanted to give and serve and love others. He says they urgently pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the Lord's people. And then it goes on to say they exceeded our expectations. They gave themselves first of all to the Lord, and then by the will of God also to us. So he looks at what their sacrifice was and said they went above and beyond. Now here's the challenge Paul gave the church in Corinth. He says, but since you have excelled in everything, in faith and speech and knowledge and complete earnestness and in the love we have kindled in you, see to it that you also excel in this grace of what? Giving. So Paul is using grace not as an act just given to us, but he's describing what happens when you actually open up and live out of the gift of grace of God on your life. It messes with you. And then Paul says in verse 8, I am not commanding you. So you can do what you want. This is not a command. I'm not commanding you, but I want you to test the sincerity of your love by comparing it with the earnestness or the eagerness of others. Right? So that's what he says there. So he's saying, you say you love Jesus. You say you're so glad that God gave his son for you. You're so glad that you got a new beginning. You're so glad that you have life after death. He goes, I'm not commanding you, but I just want you to test the sincerity of that love. And I want you to compare it with the eagerness of the other people. And so Paul's challenge to the first followers of Jesus is you say you're a Jesus follower. You say that Jesus has impacted your life. But if you want to know what someone means by what they say, watch what they do. He's telling the church in Corinth, look in the mirror. Does your faith actually impact your life? Does your faith actually change what you do? And listen to how he closed. And here's why we do this. He says, first, you know that the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake, he became poor, so that you through his poverty might become rich. So Paul says God's grace, he gave up and became what we are so that we could become what he is. That's our God. And maybe you're here today and you've rejected Jesus or you've rejected the church because you encountered a brand of Christianity that was different than that. A brand of Christianity that was all about feeling and no action, where following Jesus only meant I only go to church on Sundays. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I just go to church on Sundays, where the grace of Jesus was cheap. If you rejected Jesus for any of those reasons, you just need to know that in the beginning of Christianity, the grace of Jesus was moving. The grace of Jesus was shocking. The grace of Jesus was compelling. The grace of Jesus was costly. In the beginning, Christianity was a resurrection religion, and they watched as he was betrayed by a friend. They watched as he was unjustly arrested. They watched as he was illegally tried and convicted. They watched as he was brutally flogged. They saw with their own eyes that he was crucified, and then they witnessed a resurrected Jesus. And that made these very first followers of Jesus absolutely fearless. And when you don't fear death, what is there to fear? And after the resurrection, the church lived out of no strings attached compassion, and generosity. And this is one of the most amazing untold stories in the church, that the early church actually believed that they had eternal life. And because of that eternal life, they did not fear death. So when plagues would come and wipe out towns, and everyone ran away to escape the disease, but not the Jesus followers. In fact, history reveals that they would stay back. And they would take care of the poor, and they would take care of the sick. And the message and the mission of Jesus and the grace of Jesus hit their lives so hard, they would stay and die, caring for their friends and neighbors. They would stay and die caring for complete strangers. They would love the world just like Jesus had loved them. And it was that kind of radical generosity and compassion that changed the world. Their faith impacted their life. Their faith led them to sacrifice. Their faith changed the world. And throughout history, there's always been a remnant of Jesus followers. A remnant of Jesus followers that have been the most progressive, sacrificial, compassionate, innovative, loving, generous people that you'll ever meet. Because the message of Jesus and the mission of Jesus and the grace of Jesus impacted their hearts. I'm telling you, the ideas like God is love or God loves everybody or everybody matters to God, you need to know that those are uniquely Christian ideas. That Jesus introduced those to the world. The Greek and Roman gods did not care or love anybody. They toyed with people. The Greek and Roman gods did not require anyone else to care. See, I'm telling you, what Jesus introduced was brand new, and it changed our world. And so if you call this church your church, or if you follow Jesus, I just want you to join in with these very first followers of Jesus. We want to be a church that's known for how we give and serve and love. Now, I realize not everyone is in the position right now to give. That's why Above and Beyond is in 6 weeks from now. But it's also why we can offer you Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace. We have that for 7 more weeks. So we have this amazing resource till the end of the year. And even if you never decide to follow Jesus, I think you should check this out and discover financial peace for yourself. You can sign up today by clicking the link in our app, and you can have some breathing room in your life. But if you call Victory your church, I want you to make a plan to sacrifice. And I don't know what it is for you, but maybe you're thinking, hey, I can do $50 to feed a family here. Or I could do $100 to set up our next gen to win. Or I can maybe do $250 to buy someone out of slavery and help set them up to succeed. Or maybe you're like, I could swing $3,600 and not even miss it. And plant a church in India. I can make a plan to serve November 18th or the 20th in Indy or Franklin and Edinburgh. I'm telling you, you can do this. And as a church, we're going to prepare for a one-time sacrificial gift. And I just want to encourage you, make sure it's a sacrifice so that we can give, serve, and love. See, the need is huge. And we have the potential in front of us for generational impact through our collective generosity. I got a call on Wednesday where a family loved what this church was about and what we were doing. They loved the potential impact locally and globally. And so they gave me a challenge for you. I did not know about this before Wednesday, but they told me that they would match your gift up to $100,000. It's pretty amazing. I was blown away. I had no idea that they would be willing to do that, but they wanted their generosity to inspire your generosity. that whatever we could put together collectively, they would match it up to $100,000. And if you think that means, that's great, we raised our goal, we met it, your God's too small. Your God's too small. Their generosity should inspire our generosity. Those first Christians in Macedonia were begging to be a part of what Jesus was doing. In the middle of persecution and poverty, they were begging to be a part of that. I'm telling you, we have in front of us a moment of potential, of generational impact. We have the opportunity to give and serve and love like never before. And when we're doing that, we're joining in with those very first followers of Jesus. Throughout history, Jesus' followers cared for the sick. It became the hospitals. Jesus' care for the widows became soup kitchens. Their care for children became orphanages. They started closed pantries and rescue missions and home for unwed mothers. They were an advocate for education for all people. I'm telling you, Jesus' followers were on the front lines of the civil rights movement. They discovered vaccinations. The American Red Cross, Salvation Army, YMCA, Compassion International, Samaritan's Purse. I'm telling you, history proves that from the very beginning, Jesus' followers created generational change because of the way they gave and served and loved their community. In the midst of great difficulty, the gift of God's grace was messing with them. It motivated them. It empowered them. It changed them. Their faith impacted their life. That's their story. That's not our story. But here we stand as stewards of this moment. As the American church, what will our story be? You and I are part of the best educated, best funded, best connected Jesus followers to have ever lived. Like, we're at the top. So what will future Christians say about our faith in this moment? We're stewards of the faith of our generation, and we set the tone and we set the pace for the next generation. I just want to know, what will our story be? As Jesus followers, what will our church be known for? Will we be known for generational change? Because in front of us, we have the opportunity for generational change. But will we be known for how we gave, how we served, and how we loved? It's up to you. It's up to you. Would you pray with me? Father, I just thank you for the opportunity to be a part of what you're doing and how you open doors. If I could stay up here for hours telling people about all of the different things that are going on behind the scenes and how you're moving things into place, they'd be amazed. And Father, I just pray that we would sense in the midst of that your great provision and your great love and that great sense of connectedness to our own lives. Father, I pray that for those who have not experienced the grace of Jesus with a problem that they're dealing with in this moment, that they would sense your love just wash over them. That the grace, your grace, would be compelling, that it would mess with us, that we would understand how wide, how long, and how deep it actually is. And may we live differently because we've experienced your grace. It's in Jesus' name I pray. And I know today it can be exciting, but it can also be kind of heavy. And some of you didn't come to carry heavy out. You came because you're dealing with something in your life. We want to pray for you. We have the Next Steps room out the door to the left. We'd like to hear more about what you're going through, what's going on in your life. Out the door to the left is the Next Steps room. If you're online, it's 317-576-2288. We'd love to pray with you and find more about what's going on in your life. And remember, here at Victory, we don't just go to church. We want to be the church everywhere we go. So have a great week.